Episode 4 of Akebi continues to showcase the fantastic visuals that I've come to expect in the first 3 episodes. This time around, we get a few of the beautiful background shots in the beginning as Akebi is on her morning run into school, and there are also a few other shots later in the episode. It looks like the concerns I had about the other characters were somewhat addressed in this episode, although at this point it looks like they're trying to introduce the entire classroom, and for me, I'm just not remembering all of the different names. The 2 characters that we really get to explore a little bit more here are Tanigawa and Usagihara. I'll talk a little bit more about them later, but the focus of the beginning of this episode is to essentially showcase which girls joined which club. Tanigawa is going around taking photos of the different club members, and she asks Akebi to accompany her so that she can have Akebi do some modeling for her afterwards. It's obvious that Akebi is the one who is inspiring her to start taking photos. Before those 2 get together and start walking the campus, Akebi does go and check with her new club to see if it's alright for her to, I guess, skip the club after school. And here we get a brief introduction to a new character in the form of Akebi's club president. And while we don't get her name, she does seem like an interesting character, at least the most interesting of the characters we were introduced to in this episode. At least for me it is, anyway. It also looks like the drama club might be really small, as only Akebi and the president are in the club room, and it even had a flyer saying they were seeking new members outside on the door. Perhaps the drama club will be putting together some sort of film with Akebi as the lead? They kind of hint at that with the glimpse of the club president turning on a video camera. There isn't really much more I can speculate here, but I'm expecting we will get a focus on that club at some point in a future episode. Regardless, Akebi runs back to meet up with Tanigawa, and we get another really cute kind of shoujo ai scene. They quickly move along and start showcasing the other girls doing the various activities, even introducing a bunch of other girls from her class. And I think this part does a good job of showcasing Akebi's earnestness and just what kind of personality she has, because at the beginning, when everyone was introducing themselves, they did show her writing down the info of her classmates and taking notes. And here it really shows that she wasn't just doing that out of a need to be aware of who's in her class, but she's genuinely memorized all of their names, and I wouldn't be surprised if she also memorized anything they mentioned that they may have liked or disliked. It just shows how likable Akebi is, and also reinforces that she does genuinely care about those around her, and is interested in them. The other thing that walking around this campus showcases is kind of just how much of an uppity rich girl school this is. The campus is huge, they have really nice athletic facilities, and also like an actual archery range, and it showcases later some actual fields with crops growing and a greenhouse. Honestly, it's kind of crazy. We do eventually get to the photo shoot, and we get a bunch of cute shots of Akebi doing her model poses, and it was here that I honestly had a thought of, where did Tanigawa get that camera? I know photography cameras are quite expensive, so I'm guessing she's just borrowing it from the club, or the club has one she can use, but later, at the end of the episode, it actually shows her with it on the bus during her morning ride to school. Anyway, having that camera does allow her to get some really good pictures, but it looks like even if they do look really good, they aren't quite coming out as Tanigawa would hope. And it's here that we start touching on the main theme of this episode, which is, what do you look like in the eyes of others? Tanigawa is trying to capture this idealized version of Akebi that she has in her head, and when she takes the pictures, they don't quite match up to her expectations, and it is here that Akebi asks the question, what is my image? I personally like this moment of self-reflection because I'm one of those people who is usually oblivious to how I come across to others, and most of the time I'm not even thinking about that, and I usually end up absorbed in my own little world. But I do feel like it is important to think of that from time to time because it can often showcase why you might get certain reactions out of certain people, or to allow yourself to be put into somebody else's shoes. It really helps to gain perspective. But it is here that we get Usagihara reintroduced, as a baseball flies over while her and Tanigawa are walking away, and it almost hits Akebi during the process, but it splashes mud on her uniform. Usagihara runs over, revealing that she is a member of the baseball club, but she feels bad about dirtying Akebi's uniform, so she offers for her to come to the dorm and use the washing machine there to clean up. Both Akebi and Tanigawa agree, and they follow her back to the dorm and check in, and we get another great scene where the teacher that is checking them in starts reminiscing about when she wore the same uniform that Akebi is wearing, and she actually ends up revealing that she taught Akebi's mother. She talks about Akebi's mother as a student and how she was a troublemaker in the school. And they do that little quip where they're like, oh, it's just like Akebi. And I had a smile on my face the whole time because I didn't even think about something like this, but the truth is, it should have been obvious that a scene like this was coming. If you've ever gone to any type of small town school, it would not be uncommon to see a teacher who has taught 2 or 3 generations of family. And Akebi gets to hear a little bit of gossip about her mom, and I really hope we get a scene later where she talks to her mom about it and they have a little reminiscing moment. And it's here in the following few scenes that we really get into the meat of this episode and start to explore the theme brought up earlier. That being, how does Akebi look to others? And essentially what it looks like, without even realizing it herself, is Akebi is being viewed as this kind of superwoman who can do no wrong and is perfect. Now, we as the audience have a little bit more context and have kind of seen her vulnerable side, which her classmates have not. From the perspective of her classmates, she has gotten into this prestigious school that we have already established requires really good grades. Then she showed off how athletic she is during PE, and she comes off as this incredibly bubbly person who is nice and beautiful, and so beautiful, in fact, that Usagihara says she should have gone to school in Tokyo, insinuating that she's pretty enough to be like a legit model or scouted for an actual modeling gig. So it would make pretty good sense for them to have this kind of perfect image of her. We also do get a little bit more about Usagihara, and she mentions that she wanted to make this big splash during her introduction, but not only did her joke fall flat, but it was basically impossible for her to compete with the natural glow that Akebi puts out, and also how flashy Akebi's intro was. Usagihara then reveals that her family runs a shop that sells Western sweets and the like, so she's actually quite skilled in the kitchen. Although she doesn't realize it, but Akebi is genuinely impressed with her because it's something she can't do. Usagihara is such a good sweets chef that she's actually kind of become the resident sweets provider for the entire dorm, as they can't allow snacks in or something like that. It's also confirmed that my initial speculations about her being really extroverted seem to be accurate, as Usagihara looks to be friends with pretty much most of the dorm. And it's also here that Akebi reveals to the group that she's not a great cook. And the girls start realizing that maybe this image they had of Akebi is not 100% accurate. This is only compounded by the cute scene later when Akebi burps and wakes up Usagihara's roommate, and we kind of showcase this clumsy girl side of her that we were already aware of, but her classmates were not. I really enjoyed the whole feel of this part of the show because even though it was just a bunch of newfound friends hanging out together after school and just waiting for Akebi's clothes to wash, I genuinely just had this stupid grin on my face the entire time. I'll wrap things up here, but let me know your thoughts on this episode in the comments, and feel free to like and subscribe if you want to see more. Thank you, and I hope you have a fantastic day.